Simon & Schuster Audio presents Edge of the Earth by Christina Schwarz. Read by Candace Thaxton.
Jane, 1977. I'm not going to let on I was born here. People always ask what it was like to grow up in a lighthouse, and then they're disappointed by the answer. I'm not much of a storyteller. Anyway, growing up in a lighthouse isn't all that remarkable when you don't know anything different, and I didn't know anything different until I left Point Lucia at 19. Which was in 1912, and I haven't been back since. Not that I wouldn't have been glad to visit, but it was a lot of trouble back then. Back before Route 1 came through. I allowed all the usual preoccupations, studying and teaching, marriage and children, to chivvy me on away from the place of my childhood. I wish that my grandson Denny and I could be climbing the Morro alone now, without this straggling handful of tourists who, in their very charmlessness, remind me that Mrs. Swan is no longer at the top. I remember the day she came to us from the sea. The mountains behind us were too tall and squeezed together to let anyone through, but the ocean before and below us was like a carpet, and ships slid past on it every day, some with big white sails stretching out in the wind, some puffing steam like a whale's spout. My father was chief keeper, but Point Lucia was important enough to need 3, and red-faced Mr. Finnegan went to Cuba to kill the butcher, so we were getting someone new. We children hoped he would bring along more of our kind. My brothers were the first to see the tender, and then we all shouted, "The Madrone! The Madrone!" and ran to the edge of the Morro. "Stand back, Jane." My sister took my hand, but I knew better than to fall off a mountain, so I snatched my fingers away and stood where, straight below, the milky foam spilled around the black rocks. The wind was blowing hard enough to lean on, and sometimes, when the waves were that big, the tender would anchor and wait for better weather, so we were prepared for disappointment. Soon enough, though, the longboat, full of barrels, was dropped into the ocean. It was always a nervous thing, watching a longboat come in. Plenty of times it would swamp, and we would have to do without flour, or sugar, or library books, or Christmas oranges. We couldn't be certain until they'd rowed in a ways that the creature with a
Sample complete. Ready to continue?